Welcome. Thank y'all for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Broke But Paid. I'm your host, Finesse Game. And right into the story, as you can see the title, The Last 24 Hours of the Late Jimi Hendrix. We got another heat seeker. We got another missile. We got another banger like y'all already know how I be dropping these videos. Let's get into it, y'all.
Yeah. I remember as a youngster, you standing on the block out there playing hopscotch, making a lollipop. I wanted to come and talk, but I was shy back then. Baddest girl in the school, thought I had no man. Closest to friends, used to pick and laugh at me, used to call me silly names, cause I was so full and jagged. Exactly how I thought it would be. Years later, I'm in the Bahamas, sipping, lifting.
What's going on, man? It's your boy Finesse Game, the best game. Back with a flame. Y'all already know how we do, man. And we back up in this thing. Hey, I got another special video by request. One of my subscribers hit me up with an email and say, hey, can you do a video or reaction on the last 24 hours of the late, great Jimi Hendrix? Y'all know how I am. Somebody ask me something, I try to accommodate. Scream if y'all hear background noise. I'm on a little mini vacay in San Antonio with the missus, so bypass the background noise. I apologize, but without further ado, man, I thank y'all for tuning in. We're gonna get right into the video. Like, subscribe, share, know somebody, tell somebody, know somebody. Hey, we up in here, man, but we gonna get right into the video, y'all.
Despite everything written about Jimi Hendrix since his death, vital questions remain unanswered.
There's far too much confusion, and I can't.
Since 1970, declassified government documents, new witness statements, and pathological evidence have revealed a much clearer picture. It is now clear that Hendrix was not only aware that his life was in danger, but that he had deep, strong premonitions of his own death.
Know what any of this is really worth.
He looked me square in the eyes and said, I won't be here. And I said, what do you mean won't be here? He says, it's because I won't be in my body, I'll be dead.
Out of the blue, he said to the reporter, I doubt I'll live to be 28 years old.
There's no reason to get excited.
I'd asked him would he be going back to Seattle. He's like, he said, next time I go to Seattle, it'll be in a pine box.
There are many here among us now.
And now, with the examination of declassified FBI documents from the 60s, it appears that Hendrix's death may be far more sinister. A political assassination. The 1960s saw a sea change in American politics and culture. The anti-Vietnam demonstrations and the rise of the Black Power movement caused rioting in the streets. A new youth culture emerged in both the black and white communities. A paranoid Richard Nixon and the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover would go to any lengths to prevent the emergence of strong leaders that could influence these young men and women, even murder. Potential leaders included rock musicians who commanded the attention of millions.
Hendrix linked up with the Black Panthers, and for that reason, he was a dead man.
Two people are central to the Hendrix story. One is his manager, Mike Jeffrey.
Mike Jeffries was a very strange, slightly shady character that sort of existed.
All my Jimi Hendrix fans, man, tap in, man. He was a little bit before my time. I listened to a little bit of his music growing up, but like he died in 1970. I was born in 84, so he died a whole 14 years, if I'm not mistaken, before I was even came to this world. So, man, rest in peace to him. All my Jimi Hendrix fans, man, if y'all know anything, if y'all got any certain memories of Jimi Hendrix, let me know in the comments. We're going to get right back into it.
On the managerial sort of aspect of rock music. Always walked around in dark glasses with a kind of off-the-shoulder camel hair coat and things, you know, looked a bit like a kind of caricature mafia. Spoke in a whisper. He wasn't terribly well liked, as far as I recall. Everybody was very suspicious of Mike Jeffries, and I think with some genuine reasons.
The second person is Monica Danneman, a 24-year-old German woman who spent the last few days of Jimmy's life with him.
Monica was a kind of like ex-ice skating star that was sort of show business character, you know, and she wanted to get her foot in the door, I think, of celebrity rockdom, and Jimmy was a great entrance.
Monica's memories of the day before Jimmy died were dim, but she remembered going to Ronnie Scott's club so Jimmy could jam with Eric Burdon and his new band, War. Devon Wilson was already at the club. Devon had known Jimmy for some years. Devon had come up the hard way, a prostitute on the streets of New York at 15, and now a muse to various rock stars, including Mick Jagger and Jimmy. Jimmy's sexual appetite was enormous, and Devon would organize his diary, recording sessions, drugs, and women. Devon was bisexual and did not give up her female lovers for Jimmy. In fact, she would organize the threesomes Jimmy loved. Jimmy probably loved Devon. It was said that Devon could score dope for Jimmy anywhere in the world. It was Chas Chandler, bass player in the Animals, who discovered the unknown and penniless Jimi Hendrix playing at the Café War in New York. Acting on a hunch and his musical knowledge, he sold his guitars and borrowed money to bring Hendrix to London.
He went out on a considerable limb, as far as I was concerned, because when I first saw Jimmy, which was on his first day in London, and Chas rang me up and said, he's arrived, and I'm taking him down to the Speakeasy tonight. Do you want to come down and meet him and hear him jam? And I went down and listened to him play that night, and he was jamming with Brian Auger and a few other musicians down there, just the Speakeasy house band. And he was magnificent, he was wonderful as a musician. But to me, it was like listening to somebody like Wes Montgomery, you know, because he was such a clever musician. And I just said to Chas, quite honestly, Chas, I said, I can see this going straight over the heads of the fans. I cannot see this guy making it because he's almost too good, you know? And Chas said, not if I have anything to do with it, he won't.
Time out. One more thing before we continue. If y'all ain't when to go check out the last days of Aaliyah, the last 24 hours of Prince, the last 24 hours of Otis Redding, go check them out, man. I'm gonna keep on dropping these videos. These videos are actually doing good on my channel. I appreciate all the love and support. Go back and check them out, man. Tell me what y'all think, and we're gonna get right back into it.
And of course, what he really meant was that he was going to change his image, change his publicity and his whole approach to things, so that he would get the attention that perhaps as a mere technician he wouldn't have done previously.
In the story of Jimi Hendrix, we cut to probably September, October. We're back in London, and Eric calls up, Eric Clapton, and says that we're doing a gig tonight at University College. Could you please come? Because the guest we've got tonight is just probably the greatest guy I've ever met. So everybody's working hard, and we all play hard, and we all turned up. And Eric had played a couple of numbers when he stops and did the most phenomenal introduction for this guy. And out came Jimi Hendrix. And he played the same set he'd played in New York. But it was like 10 steps up from what he'd played before, because the crowd was so much bigger. And I looked at Andrew looked at me, and we both agreed, yeah, we've got to sign him. It was too late. Little did we know that Linda Keith had taken Chas Chandler to see Jimmy the following night, and he signed him.
One of the first times he had a chance to play for the English audience was with the Cream, and the Cream were just getting started out. Of course, Eric Clapton on lead guitar, and nobody had ever jammed with him before. I mean, it was just like, who is Jimi Hendrix, and why does he want to jam with us? But sure enough, he talked his way into meeting Jack Bruce at a pub close by, and said, you know, hey, I'd like to jam with you. I'm Jimi Hendrix. I'm over here from America. And he came up on stage, played 2 songs with the Cream, 2 blues songs that he updated with this driving electric sound. And Clapton was blown away, according to Jack Bruce. He said that nobody had ever done this before. And here comes Jimi Hendrix coming along, setting up the great electric blues guitar players of that time, like Jeff Beck and Pete Townsend, who were kind of, I guess, a little bit scared of who's this guy that can play circles around us.
Distasteful though it may seem to us today, Chas Chandler dubbed Hendrix the Wild Man of Borneo and sold him as the Black Elvis. Chas Chandler encouraged these crass expressions because it increased Jimmy's publicity. He was also dubbed Mau Mau, and not surprisingly denounced by Mary Whitehouse.
Hey, Joe, I say, I heard you shot your woman down, you shot her down now.
Within weeks, Hey Joe shot into the British top 10 to be followed by the hugely well-received debut album Are You Experienced, which was kept off the top of the charts only by Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yes, I did, I shot her. You know, I caught her mess around town.
In the summer of 1967, Jimmy played the Monterey International Pop Festival and stole the show. Overnight, he became a superstar on both sides of the Atlantic. His appeal to the kids no doubt strengthened by this coruscating review of Are You Experienced, which appeared in the New York Times. The album cover reinforces the degeneracy theme, with the three sneering out from beneath their bouffant hairdos, looking like surreal hermaphrodites. The disc itself is a nightmare show with lust and misery.
The explosion, I think, was caused by the war in Vietnam, the rebellion against it, the flower power era, you know, the hippie movement or whatever you want to call it. And acts like Jimi Hendrix were so different that the kids were yearning for something different. And when he came on the scene, he just exploded. I mean, everybody went crazy. I went crazy. It was so new and different, and he was so, I saw him live so many times. He was so magnetic on stage. I mean, he just controlled the audience. And it was an exciting time. I mean, a lot of bands, you know, who broke at that particular time with Hendrix. I mean, it was just a whole different scene.
He differed from the top acts at that time. And I mean, his sound was so different than the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or something like that. And plus, I think being an African-American in both the American audience and the English audience was a plus in his favor. I mean, there weren't any African-American guitar players at that time playing rock and roll to a white audience and getting the respect and appreciation that he did, you know?
What happened next became a rocket ride of more success, more and more sex, and huge amounts of drugs and rock and roll. After returning from Ronnie Scott's club on the day before he died, Jimmy, Monica, and Devon got together. Monica says Jimmy spoke to them of many things: astrology, cosmology, art, music, religion, and voodoo symbols. Together, they sketched out artwork designs for the next album cover. Jimmy also warned Monica off drugs and told her to beware of those who might want to harm her because she was with him. Jimmy emphasized over and over, "You must remember what I am telling you." Monica told the inquest that Devon left and she and Jimmy went to bed. This is the first of many inconsistencies in Monica Danneman's story, although the inquest into Jimmy's death believed her. Over 20 years later, Kathy Etchingham, a longtime girlfriend of Hendrix, and archivist Steve Roby re-examined all of Monica's testimony and found glaringly irreconcilable differences. Kathy discovered that Hendrix had been with friend and producer Alan Douglas. Hendrix had begged Douglas to take over his management. Michael Jeffrey, he said, was stealing vast amounts of money from him and stultifying his...
Before we continue, man, like I always say, man, if y'all ain't subscribed by now, hit that bell notification so y'all can be notified. Know somebody, tell somebody, know somebody. Hey, that we up in here. I give the best reaction videos. I give the different reaction videos. You know, you might go find a reaction channel to do their thing, but ain't nobody gonna do their thing like I do my thing, if y'all know what I'm saying. So we're gonna get right back into it.
Creativity. Jimmy told Alan that some months ago, 3 thugs claiming to be mafia hoods had kidnapped him and held him prisoner for 3 days until he was miraculously rescued by Mike Jeffrey. Jimi thought Jeffrey had staged the whole thing to make him seem indispensable as manager. Alan and Jimi made several decisions that would affect his future, most of them cutting Mike Jeffrey out of the picture completely. The next morning, Alan Douglas left for New York City on business for Jimi, leaving him in bed with his wife Stella and Devon Wilson.
Brian Epstein, as we all know, was the Beatles manager, and he loved theatre, and he bought what was called the Savile Theatre in Shaftesbury Avenue, and it was for straight theatre plays during the week, and the Sunday night he attempted to turn into like a Sunday night rock night, Sunday night with your rock and roll stars. And he called us and said, would you please be my guest tonight on Sunday, because it's Jimi Hendrix. And we went, and it was probably the top of the graph of the reaction. He was at a peak. He did all the hits. He set fire to the guitar. He played it behind his neck. He did everything. And that really is my last memory of seeing Jimi Hendrix, because it was a night of nights. And it's one of those that you take away in your own encyclopedia. And to have seen him again would probably have destroyed the myth.
Axis Bold as Love was Hendrix's next album, and it sold prodigiously, pleasing immensely his fans worldwide.
Axis Bold as Love had a great variety of songs on it. I mean, you'd have a bit of R&B going to jazz influences by Mose Allison, and of course the occasional freak out song coming in here and there. And then there were some beautiful melodies in there. And of course, you know, the great, almost kind of became the song of the hippies that back then, If 6 Was 9, you know.
For many of Jimi's fans, Axis Bold as Love was Jimi's last great rock and roll album, and it marked the end of an era of Hendrix, the black rocker, and started a new era with Jimi's music becoming more spiritual and in many ways not commercially viable.
Well, even while he was alive, there was no corporate interest in having Jimi be anything more than sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Hendrix started to realize that, well, it's not so much the quick AM pop tunes that interest him anymore, and he didn't really care where his music was going chart-wise. It was more trying to reach people's souls and give them some sort of direction and information in the music that he was more interested in.
Frustrated with Jimi's stubborn attitude to the music he wanted to play, Chas Chandler sold his share of Jimi to Mike Jeffrey. Hendrix and Jeffrey would have continual financial problems with each other. Hendrix because he was receiving no money, and Jeffrey because Hendrix had no sense of musical discipline in the studio.
Hendrix became aware that he was being stolen from by Michael Jeffrey when friends of his came to him with documents that they had procured from Michael Jeffrey's office. And the documents showed that he had been stealing $40,000 from gigs, and at the time Jimi Hendrix was making $50,000, so he was stealing 4/5 of the money.
He needed somebody to tell him the truth, because he was in that situation recording-wise again, where he went into his studio for about 3 months, you know, out of his head, wasted the recording time a lot of the time, spent huge amounts of money, and out of it would come a rambling kind of dissertation of music that he quite liked. But what it didn't have was that discipline that Are You experienced and Purple Haze and all those early albums, Electric Ladyland, had, that Chas gave to that kind of music. You know, Chas would sit in the studio and say, right, go away, play. Because Jimi played quite loosely in the studio.
Now financial problems would haunt Hendrix to the grave. As a young, naive sideman with Curtis Knight and the Squires, he had signed a ludicrous contract with a producer, Ed Chalpin, granting Chalpin the right to huge royalties in return for a buyout of $1 and Chalpin's expertise in the recording studio. Chalpin's expertise involved Jimmy recording with the glamour actress Jane Mansfield. The majority of Hendrix's earnings were paid into a secretive Bahamas-based trust called Yameta, set up by Mike Jeffrey. Most of the millions that went into it never came out. Jimmy's deal gave him just 3% of his recording and publishing deals, while Jeffrey...
Whoa. 3%? So basically, they were taking all this man money. 3%? Ain't no way I'll work for that. There's no way. Because you're not getting paid. You're doing all the work and you're really not getting no money. And this was in the 60s?
Took an astonishing 60%. Chalpin pursued his claim on Jimmy's royalties through the courts, and with a dispute in progress, all Jimmy's royalties were frozen. Jimmy was forced to face down these money issues, but there were those in the industry who doubted his abilities when it came to confrontation.
He was quite an introverted man. He was in some ways a rather weak man. He was very lovable, very likable, but he was weak. He was the kind of guy who couldn't say no. Jimmy was a massively talented musician whose whole being really went into the guitar and into his music and into his work, and he got out whatever he could by communicating through his song lyrics and things, his feelings and some of his inner desires. But he became incredibly mixed up too, even in those areas. I mean, he really couldn't tell the difference between fact and fantasy a lot of the time. He got heavily into science fiction and cult stuff and all kinds of this because he was looking for something. He was searching. You have to remember he was only 25, 24 anyway. So like a lot of young people at that time, particularly in that period in the 60s, they were all kind of trying out the Maharishi and the love and cult situations that were around, and there was an interest in Aleister Crowley and black magic and all kinds of stuff. And Jimmy kind of like dabbled in all those areas. But I think as he went along, he became found it increasingly difficult to tell the difference between what was actually reality and what was fantasy. Hendrix was just a very talented guy who didn't have a lot of backbone.
According to Monica Danneman's testimony to the inquest, Jimmy's last day on Earth was spent with just the two of them walking, talking, and shopping. They attended a party together and were home by 1 a.m. She made Jimmy a tuna fish sandwich and they shared a bottle of white wine. They undressed and went quietly and peacefully to bed.
Okay, look, I'm gonna have to break this down maybe into 2 or 3 parts. I know y'all into it, but I gotta close for right now. But I'm gonna make a part 2 with the same, with the basically a continuation of what's going on right here. I know y'all rocking with me. I know y'all feeling it, but I got something I got to do real quick. I will be back with part 2 real quick, real shortly. I'm not gonna make y'all wait too much. Thank y'all for subscribing. Thank y'all for subscribing. Thank y'all for rocking with me. If y'all ain't hit that bell notification by now, make sure y'all hit that bell notification. Make sure y'all be notified whenever I drop some more of these bangers. Know somebody, tell somebody, know somebody that I'm in here doing this reaction video. Appreciate our love, appreciate our support. Like I said, I'm gonna put the rest of my videos of the last 24 hours of Prince, last 24 hours of Aaliyah, Otis Redding, and many others gonna be in the description below. So make sure y'all check that out. Peace.